thanks so much for coming here and for giving me an opportunity to be here at Google. What we'll do is that we'll start with a video, because that's very visual, and I think lots of things it will give an idea about our work. And after that, I'll run through a quick presentation, and then we can have a Q&A. So I'll just start with this film.
Kolkata, a densely populated metropolis on the banks of the Ganges. Sustaining the livelihood of millions. A city that has blended modernization with glorious history. Life on the move. A city with a global outlook. The other face of globalized Kolkata. A grim truth, mired in poverty, helplessness, and abhorrent living conditions. Lives filled with misery, without any hope for salvation.
কষ্টে ছিলাম, মানে বাচ্চা কাচ্চা খেতে পেতো না, পড়াতে পারতাম না, মানে জামা কাপড় পরাতে পারতাম না, এইসব নানা সতেরো নিয়ে খুব এতে ছিলাম।
ছোটটা তখন পেটে ছিল, যখন চলে গেছে সেই অবস্থা খুব খারাপ ছিল। ছোট ছেলের জন্ডিস হয়েছিল, এই ওষুধও দিতে পারিনি, কাঁচা জল খাইয়েছি ছোট ছেলেকে, অনেক কষ্টে ছেলেকে বাঁচিয়ে এনেছি। আমারও খুব অবস্থা খারাপ ছিল হতে গিয়ে। তারপরে তো ওই বাচ্চাকে নিয়ে কাজ করতে পারিনি, তার সুই রেখে 150 টাকা দিত মাস গেলে।
আমরা খুব দুজনেই এরম অন্ধ, তো আমরা খুব কষ্ট করে মানুষ করেছি, কেউ আমাদের দেখেনি। যখন প্রথম হচ্ছিল আমরা এখানে এসেছিলাম, আমাদের বলেছিল, সবাই বলেছে তোমরা এরকম খেতে পাওনি, এখানে দিয়ে দাও না।
আমার ঘর বাড়ি নেই, ভাইদের কাছে থাকি, এমনকি ভাইদের সাথে অশান্তি দুবেলা হয়, বলে তুমি এখান থেকে নেমে যাও। আমি কোথায় যাব?
আমার ছেলে মেয়ে অনেক ছোট ছিল, তখন দিয়ে দিয়েছিস। আমি খুব অসহায়, আমি খুব অসুস্থ, আমার মাথায় টিউমার হয়েছে, সেই নিয়ে আমি চলছি। आज अच्छी काल नहीं।
पिताजी था, निशा सा करता था, लड़की के खोजता था नहीं, उसको हम मानुस किया, तो निशा करते करते दुर्गा पूजा में डेट हो गई। हम तो बुढ़ी हो गया, कब मरेगा कब जिएगा, हमको टीबी रोग हो गया हुआ है, कब मरेगा कब बचेगा कोई ठीक नहीं है।
Within these dark lanes of Kolkata, a man searching for the truth of life, listening to his inner voice, a man thinking beyond himself, wanting to help deprived human beings rejected by the society, having a vision for providing them a grand big family.
বিনয়দা আমার খুব উপকার করেছে। আমি ভ্যান চালাতাম, ভাড়া ভ্যান চালাতাম বলে বিনয়দা ভ্যান কেনার জন্য আমাকে টাকা দিয়েছে। এখনো আমার ছেলে মেয়েকে আমি খুব গর্ব করি যে এখানে যে পরিবেশে আছে আমি পারতাম না।
মানে দেওয়ার পরে এখন খুব ভালো আছে, ছেলেও ভালো আছে, তো সে টাকাতে আমি নিশ্চিন্তে অনেক ভালো আছি।
আমার তো খুব খুশি আছে যে মেয়েটা লেখাপড়া শিখে খুব ভালোই আছে।
হ্যাঁ, শান্তি আছে, আর শান্তি থাকবে, চিরজীবন নিয়ে যাব না।
এখানে রেখে আমি, আমার ছেলে মাধ্যমিক দিল, 9 পড়ে, 7 পড়ে, খুবই ভালো আছে।
अभी 4 साल के, अभी 14 साल के हो गया, बहुत खुशी, अभी पढ़ाई लिखाई बढ़िया करता है।
This man has been looking after hundreds of children from deprived families by giving them quality education and inculcating in them high moral values.
One day it struck me that I should start a shelter home for children from very difficult backgrounds, and to whom I could dedicate my whole life. I could bring them up as my own younger brothers and younger sisters. So in that spirit, as a guardian to them, I can live my whole life. When I decided to start a shelter home, I was first looking for land where I could start and then do some construction in that land. But even a small piece of land was costing so much that, I mean, it was just beyond any kind of imagination that I had. So I decided to start in a rented building. I therefore saw a few buildings and finally, zeroed on a rented building which was near the IIM campus, and rent of which was around 12,000 rupees. So I started taking lectures for MBA aspirants in some coaching institutes in Calcutta, and through that I could meet this rent.
The financial position of Parivaar started improving as it gained popularity within his family, friends and colleagues. His mother, an ardent believer in the goodness of people, was the first donor of Parivaar. Within a year, Vinayak had enough funds to buy 2 acres of land at 24 Parganas and to start Parivaar.
So in this way I started. First 3 children I brought from a village around 20 kilometers from Kolkata, from extremely deprived backgrounds. And with that, after 15 days, another 10 children came. So in this, at the end of say 2 months, I had around 30 children already. I then began to write email appeals first to IIM Calcutta alumni, because that was the domain I had access to. Though I had written to more than 1000 people, percentage wise a very small percentage responded, but still number wise it was around 20-25 people who responded, which was very encouraging to me, because I realized that when I am just starting this work, even at this stage there are people who are showing confidence in me, showing trust in me.
As the number of children grew, Vinayak realized that Parivaar should have its own school to cater to the unique need of an ideal development of the children at Parivaar. Amar Bharat Vidyapeeth is affiliated to the West Bengal Board of Education and runs classes till the high school level. This ensures that the children have a recognized certificate to continue higher education on the way to their career paths. The Vidyapeeth teaches the children to be proficient in 3 languages: Bengali, English and Hindi.
So all our children till grade 10 study there, and in grade 11, 12 and for graduation in colleges, they attend some outside institutions which have the stream they want to study.
Every child at Parivaar is able to aspire for a brighter future based on the quality education and life skills they receive at Parivaar. The initial focus on children from urban and rural areas was expanded to include children of highly impoverished tribal areas, where even 2 square meals were not available and malnutrition was rampant.
मैं झारखंड से आया हूँ। यहाँ दादा ने मुझे लाया है, क्योंकि झारखंड में मुझे पढ़ाई करने की इतनी सुविधा नहीं थी। यहाँ आके मुझे बहुत सुविधा मिल रही है। जैसे यहाँ आके मैं इंग्लिश के बारे में, बंगाली के बारे में, जैसे पहले तो मैं हिंदी जानता था सिर्फ, यहाँ बंगाली भी जान लिया और इंग्लिश भी जान रहा हूँ।
At Parivaar, we have residential children from around 14-15 different districts, around 12 districts in West Bengal, 2 districts in Jharkhand, and a few pockets in Bihar and Chhattisgarh also.
Every year, Parivaar screens more than 1,500 cases of needy children for admission. These children are in the age group of 5 to 10. Parivaar has a detailed pre-admission screening process, which includes a site visit to determine that the child is extremely needy and vulnerable and in need of long-term residential support. One of the criteria in selecting the child is to determine that there is a minimal possibility of a dropout of the child from Parivaar.
We ensure that they are not looking for a short-term stay at Parivaar just for say a couple of years or so, but for a long-term transformation. So if a child is admitted at the age of 5, our aim is that till higher education, which could be graduation and after that a job placement, till that level the child will be at Parivaar.
Most NGO and government-run shelters support the children till they attain the age of 18. The support is withdrawn after the child turns 18. Parivar has no such age limit.
I think that just like in a family, how a family supports a child to the last possible conclusion. It could be higher education, it could be job placement, depending on the potential of that child, giving all kinds of opportunities to make the most of that potential. So this was my vision, that just like a family, Parivar will also handhold the child till the last conclusive stage, which does full justice to his or her potential.
Parivar is now West Bengal's largest free residential institution, a home to more than 1,000 less privileged children, served by a team of deeply committed 170 plus full-time staff. Parivar has 2 campuses furnished with dorm-like housing, a school which has its own library, computer lab, dining halls, medical rooms, recreation halls, play fields, etc. Here, every child is seen as a project, and there is a high degree of adherence to an individualized plan of action for each child. Most children, when admitted into Parivar, are without any exposure to letters or numerals. Parivar has devised a structured bridging program for children between the ages of 5 and 10, whereby these children are provided tutoring for 6 to 12 months to bring their education levels at par with their age group.
I think this is very important because this correction has to be done in the initial phase itself. At the age of 15, nobody would want to sit in grade 6. So the backlog has to be minimized at the starting point itself, so that when they are 10 or 11, they are actually in grade say 4 or 5 or 6. After the bridging, the children are admitted into our own in-campus school, Amar, Bharat, Vidyapeeth.
After school hours, special tutors help the children in enhancing their academic performances. Children who had no opportunity of going to school, whose nutrition, safety and well-being were also under question, now start aspiring to be teachers, to be engineers, to be doctors, and to enter many such other careers. A high happiness quotient maintained in the family is the reason for the negligible dropout rate at Parivar. The atmosphere around Parivar lends itself to self-esteem and creates hope amongst the resident children. 100% of the children of Parivar appearing for the board exam clear the exam with decent scores.
The emotional and psychological nurturing of each child, I think that is of a very high level, and that I believe is the most important achievement of Parivar. Now second is that the aspiration level of the children completely changes, because their esteem need here is really fulfilled. The self-respect and the respect from others that they get here from our Sevavatis, just like in a family, how you are sensitively dealt with.
A full-time staff member of Parivar is fondly referred to as a Sevavrati, meaning the one who is devoted to an ideal service. The Sevavratis cater to all the needs of the boys as well as the girls.
शिव ज्ञान में जीव सेवा, सबके अंदर शिव है. स्वामी विवेकानंद जी ने कहा था ये, लेकिन परिवार में सही में है. हर एक बच्चे को कहीं से भी आता है, वो लगता है हमारे बच्चे. जब परिवार में वो बच्चा आ जाता है, लगता है ये बच्चा हमारा ही है. बस उसका बैकग्राउंड में क्या है वो नहीं देखना है. परिवार में दादा का बच्चा है और हम सब सेवापति का बच्चा है. जब तक यहाँ पर आएगा वो हमारा बच्चा बन के ही रहेगा. बड़ा होगा, अच्छा इंसान तो बनेगा, तब तो समाज भी अच्छा बन जाएगा.
The children from the early batches of Parivar are now getting ready to plunge into the competitive professional world. Some are working as interns in industry and corporate offices, while others are strengthening their resumes by gaining work experience. Parivar goes beyond providing good education. It also guides the children in their choice of a career. They are set on a path on which they would be able to create a niche for themselves while conforming to the values instilled during their stay at Parivar.
আমি 2004 সালে 14 এপ্রিলে পরিবারে এসেছি. ওই টাইম থেকেই দাদা আমাদের দেখভাল করেছে। ক্লাস 4 থেকে আমি পড়াশোনা করে এখন বিকম ফার্স্ট ইয়ার পরীক্ষা দিয়ে এবার সেকেন্ড ইয়ারে উঠলাম। পরিবারে আমি অ্যাকাউন্ট ডিপার্টমেন্টে কাজ করছি।
Every child has a potential that needs an opportunity for development. If they are provided the right kind of opportunity and the right kind of nurturing, they have a tremendous potential to do well.
हर 2 महीने के बाद बच्चे का उसके गार्जियन के साथ हम लोग का मीटिंग होता है। वो भी बच्चे को देखने के लिए आते हैं, फिर हम लोग के साथ मीटिंग भी करते हैं। इसका मेन कारण है कि गार्जियन के पास अंदर में एक सपना देना कि वो सोच सके कि अपने बच्चों को किस लेवल तक ले जा सकते हैं। तो वो लोग सोचते हैं कि अपना लड़की 10-12 साल हो जाए तो उसको शादी करा दे कहीं पे, या लड़का हो 13-14 साल का हो गया तो उसको किस काम में लगा दे, 2-4 पैसा आ जाए। लेकिन ये सोच नहीं सकते कि ये अपना भी बच्चा वो डॉक्टर बन सकता है, इंजीनियर बन सकता है, कुछ भी बन सकता है बड़ा लेवल में। तो हम लोग का ये कोशिश रहता है हमेशा उनको ये बोलना, उसको समझाना, आप अपने बच्चे को और बड़े स्तर में ले जाने के लिए कोशिश करो और हमें सपोर्ट करो कि हम ये कर सके, ये सेवा आपको दे सके, आपके बच्चे को और बड़ी जगह पे ले जा सके।
Parivaar is expanding like a juggernaut in popularity and in resources. It is now the largest free residential institution in the state of West Bengal. Vinayak is actively working on expanding the current Parivaar facility from accommodating 1,000 children to 3,000 children.
For the last 3-4 years, Vinayak had spent a lot of time in building this tier of leadership. And now we are very comfortable, that's why, that even if Vinayak is not there for several weeks in Parivaar, Parivaar runs absolutely smoothly because the next line of leadership are perfectly in place.
Inspired by the teachings of selfless service by Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekanand, Vinayak Lohani is helping transform the lives of hundreds of destitute children, not only of West Bengal, but also those from the surrounding states like Jharkhand, Bihar and Chhattisgarh. Parivaar, his vision, is now a dream fulfilled. This tireless journey of determination and dedication would provide a role model for many.
So I'll just spend 10 minutes before we take questions on as the film also showed. So basically Parivaar's emphasis is on overall caretaking of children from destitute backgrounds. It's a non-denominational organization, so only criteria is the high neediness level of children. And our core inspiration has been through the great spiritual and humanistic teacher in 19th century India, Swami Vivekanand, and whose core theme was essential divinity of man, and therefore service to human beings being the highest form of spiritual practice. So when I just passed out of IIM, at that time I opted out of placements and I wanted to actually live this kind of a philosophy. So at that time also one thing was that in social sector lots of things called for a very high degree of technical expertise. Say domains like say working with farmers in drought prone areas or environmental issues or many such things, and I didn't have any such thing. So I asked myself that what do I have? I don't have any technical expertise of such domains. So I just thought that basic human emotions, which are very, very universal, love and care. So these basic sentiments, I thought that let me start a work which is a manifestation of these basic human values. So my work did not start with any, cerebral motivation or intellectual idea. There was no grand idea involved. I mean, I always say that it's the most simple thing. I mean, cerebrally speaking, what we have been doing. Even an unlettered woman in the most remote area in India may be bringing up her children with utmost care and love. So the idea was to manifest these values, this sentiment. So the whole organization built on that spirit. So all the processes which happened as the organization got built up, they bore the stamp of these guiding sentiments of loving, caring. Now, so this is our mission, changing lives permanently of such children, homeless, familyless children, highly vulnerable children. So children from backgrounds like orphans, street children, girl children from mass prostitution areas whose mothers are already, they were victimized at some point of time and stuck in flesh trade, in prostitution, and they themselves are very vulnerable to being pushed into that trade because there is a very high degree of generation to generation continuity in prostitution, organized prostitution. So these were our domains, and then later on from very impoverished tribal areas, particularly those which were affected by the Naxal movement, the extreme left-wing violent movements. There are pockets in Jharkhand, West Bengal, Eastern India. So this was the thing. So in 3 children, just in a rented building, I did not have any funds. I did not look for any kind of funding support, formal funding support. I just started it in my own way. I did not have a job because I did not take up a job, but some part-time time I used to give for just earning that much, which could help me in starting this. And in this way, in a rented building with friends supporting in that manner. So actually a huge degree of individual support. Till date, actually 75%, 80% of support is through individuals, and only rest 20% through institutional, donors like say corporates or funding agencies, etc. I always believed that all the work in the world is done by individuals. So I always had a huge faith in individual goodness. Even institutional support that we get is as a result of championing of some individual supporter who has internalized our vision. So that approach and belief continues. In this way, from 2003, all these years the residential institution has come up in this way, and in next 3 years, actually, we are going for a faster scaling now that our processes are all set and leadership at many different levels. Operationally speaking, Parivaar is now on an autopilot. So even my involvement, operationally speaking, is not required to that extent. So all other tiers of leadership and management have been created. So we are looking for a faster expansion in next few years because need for such a service is huge in India. Now this is basically like West Bengal and Jharkhand. These are the primary bases from where we have children. We created our field networks in these 14, 15 districts and some other pockets in neighboring states, Bihar, Odisha, Chhattisgarh. District-wise, it's like this. So a major portion is from West Bengal and then some tribal districts in Jharkhand, which impoverished districts. Now, like in the film also mentioned, so we screen a large number of cases which are brought to our notice through diverse ways. It's through field groups, local NGOs, local self-government like say panchayats or municipal authorities or government department of say child welfare or police. So all these actually are primary referees of cases, and upon which we do a very detailed site visit and neediness analysis, because our capacity of intake at any point of time is limited and the cases which come to our attention far outnumber that. So it's purely on the basis of neediness, and at the same time we also try to assess that there is no chance of dropout in the case. So we just like ensure during our pre-admission exercise and dialogue with the referring party, it could be the relative or folks of the village of the child, that how desperate and motivated they are to see the child into such a system of long-term transformation. So very often I am asked this question that how do you motivate the folks of the child, and I answer it in this way that we do not have to motivate, they have to motivate us how desperately they need such a service, because the demand of such a service is anyway huge, and so neediness and at the same time minimal chance of a dropout from the program. These are our main criteria while shortlisting for admitting into Parivaar. So children are admitted during the age of 4 to 10. I mean, that's the entry point. And when in case of siblings, you take all the siblings so that the family bonding continues. So you have a large number of sets of siblings, even for 4 brothers and sisters or 3 like that. So all of them together progress. And there is a considerable degree of rootedness with their background, like through our own field visits to their areas, or we invite periodically, they stay at Pari, or we make all the arrangements. So for far off places, 300, 400 miles, the relatives or villagers continue to come to Parivaar. So that ensures that the children also have the rootedness with their earlier community or background that remains intact. So this also I'm very often asked that such a since there is a very, very drastic shift, so how do the children themselves adjust to this? But like my experience has been that they themselves take it in a very, very positive way. So rather than derooting from their past, it's actually an enhanced motivation to contribute something, give back, and actually impact their own local communities once they are in a position to do so. So it's like this. So education wise also, younger children, those who did not have a backlog, who were say like around say 5 or 6, they start with the earlier grades, and those who are slightly older, say 8, 9, 10, and almost everyone at Parivaar is without any exposure to education. So such children who have a huge backlog in terms of age, they are taken through a fast learning bridging program and then admitted to a grade at par with their age. So this is like our own school, and after that, under our care only, children continue to, like just from a family, how kids attend outside institutions. So after grade 11, since streams become very diverse, some kids actually go for sciences, some after that into engineering, computer. We have kids in computer science engineering, and say nursing, or it could be other medical or some skill and vocational program. We have a lot of skill and vocational programs also for children who are academically like not that bright, but like that also ensures a career which also has an upward mobility possibility through skill programs. In India these days, actually a huge amount of thing is being done in the skills space, which was not the case a few years back. That was a tremendous, you get the macro level change, and we are also getting benefit. A few years back, I used to have anxiety about this, like about what about the kids who are not doing well academically, or who have say some kind of learning disability or slow learners. So, but huge amount of vibrancy is there in last few years with the National Skill Development Corporation coming, and lots of courses in blue collar space, which ensures assured placement and placement in organized sector. Earlier skill space was very, very disorganized. It's becoming increasingly more organized now. So that's a good thing, I mean, nationally speaking. So these are also supplementary. We have a lot of supplementary support to education, so that children continue to do well. Just like how in a family, all the processes which are there in a family are in some form replicated at our end. So just like in a family, how parents or elder siblings would guide or tutor or mentor the kids, we have our own systems of doing that. So it's basically right from, you could say, KG to PG, you could say kindergarten to, it could be post-graduation, hand-holding, and to a placement, and actually like, and even after that they need a lot of support. Like our kids, earliest kids are now getting into jobs. So like suppose they are in a city, they have got a job in Calcutta city. So we have to ensure that where do they stay, and initial maybe 1 year, 1.5 years, all that kind of support. Maybe they have to take a rented accommodation, they have to give a deposit for that and all that. So it's like, just like, I mean, till they are completely on their own. So it's like how a family would support. I mean, Parivaar is actually a family in the garb of an institution, you could say. So skills and vocational education, something which I talked about. So a number of courses, I mean, say hardware, computer hardware, networking, electronics, consumer goods servicing, beautician, BPO, hotel management, hospitality, a number of huge array of such skill programs we run, and in collaboration also with some specialist agencies which are doing that and which ensure a placement after that, guaranteed placement. now like on all these, this is the most important aspect of Parivar, even more important than the education, because like in a residential setup or in a family, as you can imagine, many of you would be parents, so the responsibility of parenting, the same responsibility we have, so on health issues, on overall caretaking. So we have a scientifically planned system and very personalized. So children, lots of children, when they come to Parivar, they have a huge malnourishment and supplements have to be given to them. So it's very, very individualized. Individualized health charts are there, and medical files are there for all children. Individual medical histories are there, right from the time they enter Parivar. We have a medical staff, resident medical staff comprising nurses, paramedical staff, etc., ambulances and everything. Arrangements with hospitals, tie-ups with hospitals, group insurance for the whole children. So all those kinds of things. These are overall development things which the film also depicted. So I think like the major success point of Parivar is actually like ensuring that there's a very high degree of emotional and psychological nourishment, I would say. I mean, academically and educationally, I still feel that we have a long way to go, because so many more things we have to like do, and there are constraints of HR there, like, and our location wise it's far from the city, so there may be constraints on that side, and we grapple with that, but nothing stops us from making Parivar a very, very high degree of emotionally nourishing place. So that has been the case right from day one. I mean, when we were very, very low on resources. So it's about the environment. So we have around 80 people who stay, 80 workers, I mean, working staff who actually stay on the campus. I have always like lived with the kids. That has been my family. So when I started, I also decided that I will not have any other thing in my life. So that simplified matters. So as a result, I never got married even, and my parents were at some other place, so I didn't have much of a social obligation outside Parivar. So it was like this. So this has been my family, and for 80 other resident people who live at Parivar and call it their family. And in addition, we have around 90 more daytime staff for daytime roles. It could be teaching, tutoring, all these things. So lots of things, I mean, you could say on fun and, joy and happiness quotient enhancements. So all the things you can imagine which happen in any household, celebrations, festivities, excursions, carnivals, cultural huge amount of cultural events, etc. Infrastructure wise, right from a rented building, then I for the first time took 2 acres of land. It now became around nearly 20 acres of land now. And then 2 campuses, we have major campus. One is for, I mean, both are at the same locality actually and adjacent to each other. One is for the girls, and there primarily we have our women resident staff. It's very, very difficult actually to manage a girls residential home, and people would not venture into doing that. There are very, very few girls residential institutions in India, whereas they are the most vulnerable. Reason is that it's very, very difficult to find resident women, which you need for a girls residential institution. You can get males who will work in India on campus, they can stay, but usually our candidates for having resident women are maybe like women who are not married, etc. I mean, the social customs, or maybe in India, it's usually like married men can work at some other place and stay resident or in overnight role, but very hard to find women. So that has always been a constraint. But like right from the beginning, I was dissuaded from actually like working and starting like girls residential. Only women social entrepreneurs have done that mostly in India. But I was very, very sure right from the beginning that we will have both girls institution as well as boys. And we had a common residential institution for at least first 6-7 years. And after that only we were in a position to have different institutions. Actually that having common is in fact not, I mean, some guidelines are also there in the government that we were not allowed to do that, but somehow we managed to see that period. So like, I mean, these are some very wonderful cases, particularly these three, because these three after like graduation are also working at Parivaar. They chose to actually like give back for at least for say next 3-4 years at Parivaar. So they are in very key roles. Firoz, he was like 10 years back, you can see, and now he is in our in an important position in our finance, accounting department. Suman now is looking after child admissions, administrative role. 10 years back, he himself was 11 years back, in fact, got admitted to Parivaar. And Shubham, again, like from a very vulnerable, traffic-prone area. His sisters were also like you could say victims of trafficking, and from there all the siblings were admitted. He is now a science teacher in higher grades, mathematics and sciences. So so this kind of a spirit of actually like there are many children who are, since they've come out of this system only, and they carry this vision and philosophy of Parivaar. And so I am very like, this was my dream actually, that the future leadership of Parivaar should include in a major way the children who have come through Parivaar. That should be that was the legacy I wanted to leave. So it's actually turning out in that manner only. Now, like in tribal areas also, we outreached and created a field network. Like say in and around Calcutta, our institution has become well known, so cases on their own come to us. But there are so many areas which are almost cut off from the rest of the country. These are like Naxal affected areas, and even police doesn't enter these areas. So here we actually outreach, created field network through local, holding community meetings. Like I remember in one Naxal tribal area in 2007, during late evening when nobody ventures, because there are these mines, it's called mines, which are placed and a bomb blast, vehicles get blasted there. So, but still we ventured there, and like in any random interior village, I then like brought the village elders, I brought to Parivaar. I said that be our guest for say 1 week. And just there are in every village there are some respected village elders. They are also like from the same community, but they are kind of opinion leaders in that area. So we just brought them, and they stayed at Parivaar and then went back and spread the word. So in areas where nobody knew, these kind of approaches also we took. And then after that, all these relatives of the children became our local volunteers. They are our field workers. We don't have recruited staff for all that. All these like relatives of the children from far-flung area, they themselves are a contact person. They do then the primary referencing of more children in that region and all the liaisoning part with the area. These are two main tribes, Sabar and Biror. We do a lot of other things here, like around 3,000 other children's education we support through various field groups which we have created in this field network. So this Parivaar, its major aspect, the residential institution, but a lot of other ancillary support activity it does. So 3,000 children's education, we do a food stock scheme. Some 600, 700 households are covered, and around 15,000, 20,000 kilograms of food stock every month are ferried into interior area. These are like starvation areas, and there are times when there are famine-like conditions, starvation deaths even happen in many such areas. So all this also we do, since we are like integrated into those field areas. So these commitments also we have to fulfill. Like here it's written like educational sponsorship to additional 2,600 boys and girls outside Parivaar from this local area. Monthly food stock scheme. This is for elderly, and there are other families in the tribal area, but elderly uncared for women who are like begging on the streets like that, who have no one to take care of. So particularly 800 elderly uncared women. Medical support, food stock support, and in general Parivaar acts as a guardian of the entire local area in case of any exigence. So ours is the door they'll knock for any kind of exigency support. Future, this is how we'll be scaling. We may start similar institution in next few years, and possibly in say Jharkhand or Madhya Pradesh or Chhattisgarh. These are also on our radar. But at the same location itself, we are scaling 3-4 times. Like we have land, etc., for 3,000, 4,000 children. So that will happen at our area itself, present area, West Bengal, near Calcutta. But at the same time, in some other states where we have a local field base. So, finally speaking, Parivaar, continuous fest of joy and learning. This is what Parivaar is, and the central government particularly has recognized our work, Government of India. And they have inducted me into also 3-4 important ministerial committees. Like I am on the HRD's ministry, which is the Education Ministry in India's apex advisory body for developing the education policy. Similarly, in Ministry of Women and Child, its advisory board. In Ministry of Finance, the aspect of Finance Ministry deals with NGOs in general, like their taxation and regulations, which should guide the NGO sector. So all on that also. So it's like this. In like a few years back, our Parivaar was selected as the best child welfare institution in the entire country by the President of India. Now these are just a few tables. Our OPEX, in per child, it's it comes to around in Indian rupees close to 40,000 rupees annually per child, which is around $650 for a resident child. And you can see that nearly half of it, at least 40 to 45%, is the fooding component itself. So it's like this. And our OPEX, it's around Indian rupee 5 crore, which now the exchange rates are have gone over. So now it's around $800,000. Earlier it was $1 million, but due to the exchange rate in dollar terms, at 800,000 USD. And we have to do a lot of infrastructure build up. So around $500,000 each year we spend on infrastructure build up for scaling up, for creating the residential block and all infrastructure facility for the kids. So nearly $1.5 million we raise, and primarily, as I said, through individuals. It's like this. So this is, I stop here and I can take some questions now. We have, I think, how much, 15 minutes or so? Yeah. So, and other than that, like, I also now work a lot on the network level of particularly young social entrepreneurs. So I also convened along with some other friends. We have a very significant philanthropic platform called Caring Friends. So it has more than 25 very good grassroots organizations there. So I do a lot of support and actually access to funding, etc., for those organizations as well, and mentoring young social entrepreneurs, particularly those who have left some kind of settled careers and are venturing into this, because in India it's still a very it's insecure and full of uncertainty. It's perceived as that actually. So just to give them a feeling that we are with you and ensuring a sense of security, etc. And in the initial years, particularly to such social entrepreneurs. So a number of such organizations we are hand-holding. So we have this Caring Friend literature also here with us, along with Parivaars. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for coming, Vinayak. This was very inspirational. I have a question around, so obviously you have had the privilege to go to an IIT and IIM and have that type of education. And because of that, or I'd rather say despite of that, you chose to do something that was coming from your heart and you really followed that calling. What are you doing with these children? Like, what type of education are you providing them to do the same that you did? And you mentioned a couple of cases where kids are helping out at the school after they're graduating or once they're old enough. But how do you make sure that they have that sense of gratitude and give back to where they came from rather than aspire for great careers in, let's say, the US or anywhere else?
No, there's nothing wrong with
There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we would welcome them, but
my work is supported by such people who aspired for great careers. So I would be the last person to say anything against that. And here, as far as kids at Parivaar are concerned, it's like, in the environment, gratitude I always feel is the most basic human sentiment. every human being should have that. Like I am very, very grateful to Parivaar children that I got an opportunity to. So it's a common sentiment that everyone should have. So, but it can't be, forced down your throat. So we are giving opportunities through that. First, let them manifest their, potential. And I am sure that with the kind of values which the environment at Parivaar had, naturally, like it will have its effect. But we don't as far as this value education is concerned, I don't believe in a moral science kind of classroom kind of thing. I always think that Swami Vivekananda once said that if you want to never teach anyone to be good, if you want to reform John Doe, live with John Doe. And if you have any of the fire of purity, he'll catch it. So it's like this. So it's about living with, living and through your own life. I think children are quick learners of, how elders are behaving, etc. However, so you may philosophize or, hide or pretend. So this is like first giving them chance, and I'm sure that those things happen naturally.
What can we Googlers and expats do to help social enterprises in India?
The first thing is about engaging with social enterprises. Greater degree of engagement. First, one should have first-hand experience of visiting organizations, and in a very remote way, it may be difficult, not so easy. Like I am very often asked this question that we do not know how the, if we make a donation, how it will get utilized. Actually, it's not that difficult. It's actually a kind of a lazy way of engagement because of which these kind of things come. For example, there are direct grassroots organizations. People generally do through intermediaries or through funding agency, and then they are extending support. So one doesn't know, but directly there are organizations. There are like our friends here. These two are also engaging with a number of, Shrikant is a Googler. So they are engaging directly, visiting a number of organizations in India when they go back. So actually, like through direct engagement, you get a much better exposure. You get ideas of how to help. It could be at the level of ideas. He has done, for example, a lot for many organizations while being at the US and also when he was in India. So it's like one has to engage first, come in touch, and that needs some kind of an effort. So you have to get out of your comfort zone for doing that first.
Thanks for stopping.
Yeah, thank you.
Inspiring to see what you said. I had two questions. The first one is, I think you partly answered that. Based on what you presented, it looks like there is a need for some kind of, I'd venture that there is a need for some kind of funding as you scale up your operations.
Yeah.
And secondly, you also mentioned that people over here can actually engage more in a real sense. What are some of the things that, besides these two, what are some of the immediate needs that are on the top of your mind? That's one question. And the second question, which is sort of unrelated, is how is the government helping? Are you getting help? Are you positive about the help you're getting from the government? Thank you.
So I'll just take the second part first. Like government financial funding support from government in India happens in a different way. Like government has a number of social welfare schemes. And if you run those schemes directly under those parameters, in the sense that you are kind of, I would use the analogy of being a subcontractor. So a subcontractor of government schemes, if you run, then you get those kinds of fund. But in programs or organizations or initiatives which have been designed, which are not commissioned projects, but are designed by some, entrepreneur or so founder, and under your own design parameter you want to do, then you don't have access to those government funds. And even if you have, there is a huge amount of loss of autonomy by taking government funds in India. And government in India is also like, we have to understand that there is a state government in each state and government of India. And usually the social welfare, you have to deal with the state government, local state government through channels of local bureaucracy, local, say, panchayati raj system. There's a huge amount of political interference there. So that's not, when I started, I didn't think that's a nice way to go about building your organization, because you lose control. But when you are in a position of strength, then you can start dealing a bit more with the government. So now we are some kind of access we have. For example, there is a provision of MPLAD fund, Member of Parliament's Local Area Development. So that doesn't come through the ministry or department. It's purely discretionary of the Member of Parliament. So a good Member of Parliament, there are a few particularly in the Rajya Sabha, which is the House of Elders in India, and there are president-nominated MPs there. So those are people who are not from the political system, high achievers in their own field. So a few of them have actually supported us. So that is also government funding, or doesn't come through the conventional route. So about that, it's a choice one has to make about loss of autonomy and access to funds. Then about this, your first part, Parivaar, is scaling up. So financial support would need for that will always remain. But there are so many other ways of engaging. Like from US itself, many of our supporters, for example, who have a little bit more grown-up kids. So we have a kids exchange program, for example. Not exchange, their kids only come and staying for a few weeks, and it's like a lot of living and sharing, basically. I don't use the word volunteering for that, but just living and sharing. So a lot of cross-cultural learning for both our kids as well as those who are visiting. That has been a very successful thing at our end. So many diverse ways of engagement are there, therefore. And as I said, that today I'm representing not just in my own work, but the sector as a whole. There are so many other good initiatives. Particularly right now, there is a very, very devastating famine in Marathwada region in Maharashtra, where 10 farmers each day are committing suicide. I am also urging most of my supporters actually to extend support there. So one of our lead organizations, mentored by us actually, is actually doing a lot there. So so many situations are there one caring. So I think you should have an engagement with a whole ecosystem of organizations, in fact, about various domains. And it's just like how in a stock market you follow a number of stocks, okay, their positions and their stories change with time. So similarly, as far as engagement with social sector in India is concerned, I think that should be the way. Yeah.
And we have flyers in case you want to pick out on the way.
Yeah, this whole caring friend network also we have. So for 25 organizations, 25 best organizations in India, we have literature here today.
So I have two questions. One is when you took a path that was off the beaten track, right? What was the reaction of your parents?
Yeah.
And then secondly, as you were growing, did politicians or local police or anybody get in the way?
Yeah. So now first thing was that I did not belong to Calcutta. In fact, I did not know anyone in Calcutta. And I started there. So I learned the local language, integrated myself with the local culture, all that. And I had come to Calcutta only for doing my MBA, but I got caught up in such a company of people who are related to these kind of humanitarian work. So I used to visit organizations and volunteer and all that. So that got me going. Otherwise, maybe that way, there were so many things against me. Odds were against me there in that area. But the momentum in the mind, inspiration got built up there. So at that time, I never discussed this with my family. I never gave them a chance to register their views. So I never got to know of their views because I never went back home for many years, actually. And they, some of my elder sister or other relatives used to come. So slowly my mother was actually very supportive. My father being a more practical person, therefore, he was worried. And he didn't trust me enough. He thought that he had the image of an immature kid. So he thought that I'll mess up everything. So, but in course of time, they, I think, became very confident. So I have their blessings.
And all of us wish really best for you and Parivaar.
Yeah. Thank you.